haven't done a lot of these, but you do need to remember, if there is an A, you have to pay attention to the order that that A is being applied as well. But some of us are making this harder than it has to be. Now I have x minus 2 and that's squared. What undoes a square? Now I'm about to make a mistake, so don't write this down. And I'm not telling you where the mistake is. You need to look for it.
Okay.
But this is a mistake I saw multiple people making. So we get x minus 2 equals I, and then we added 2, and then I saw x equals I plus or minus 2. I saw some people write it as I plus 2 and I minus 2. 2 plus I? Okay. So positive or negative 2 plus I is what I saw some people write. Either way, that's the same. All of these ways of writing it are incorrect.
Oh my God.
Does anyone see where the mistake first is?
You don't add it.
Okay, first off, I want to clarify something. Look, there we go. Please pay attention. If you write 2I, what you're saying is that 2 and I are being multiplied. They're not being multiplied. The issue is actually right here, immediately after we took a square root. You got to remember, it's not the 2 that is plus or minus. You get the plus or minus when you take the square root. So when I took the square root here, I got a plus or minus I. Notice I'm only adding 2 here. I'm not adding and subtracting 2. I'm only adding 2. That is why you need to be careful and show the plus or minus when you take the square root. We should have written 2 plus or minus I. Or 2 plus I and 2 minus I. You have to be careful about that, and remember, it's when you take the square root that you get the plus or minus. Man, the trick for getting Xavier to stay awake is to make him laugh. If he makes it laugh, he starts staying awake the whole time. Yeah, remember that for the next 3 weeks or so.
Yes, I am, bro.
So yes, he has 3 to 4 weeks. Alright. Hey, if I can grab everyone's attention. One of the things I want to point out, because we got to speed up just a little bit, one of the things I want to point out here is, what are 2 plus I and 2 minus I in respect to the equation x minus 2 squared plus 1 equals 0? What are those? The what? No, these. What are these in respect to the original equation? We used inverses to get them, but what are they? They're what? They're the zeros or the roots of the solutions. Now I want to pause and I want to pick up on something you're saying. You said they're the x values of what?
The x-intercepts.
Are they x-intercepts?
No.
Why not? Not x value of the vertex. The what? Remember, this is something important. When they are real roots, they are the x values of the x-intercepts. I'm really glad you brought that up. But we need to remember that these are imaginary. So are they going to have x-intercepts? We all good with that? Okay. And so again, that's a great thought, Jane. I'm glad you brought it up. But that's why we have to pay attention to the language that we use there. But these are the roots. Hey, if I have roots, how can I rewrite this function? In what form? I never, well, we had vertex form to start, but my question is, if we have roots, how can I rewrite this? In factored form. So if I were to look at this, what is factored form in general?
X minus R1, I think.
There's an A there in front, right? X minus R1 times. Now, for this function, or if I were to graph this as a function, A is 1, right? But what am I going to put in the place of R1? So X minus what? Is it just a 2? 2 plus I. Isn't that the entire root? That would be, and then it'd be x minus 2 minus I. Okay, now you can distribute and rewrite this, but notice it's just x minus the first root and x minus the second root. So yes, you can rewrite it so that you don't have two sets of parentheses, but the x minus 2 minus I and x minus 2 plus I. I see a lot of people sitting back and just looking at it. I would ask questions in a second, but I would also write this down and make notes somewhere on that page. There's plenty of blank space. These are roots. So I can write factored form. Well, to answer your question, Xavier, here you do, because remember you're subtracting the entire root. The entire root is 2 plus I. Now notice I distributed the minus, so it became minus 2 minus I. So you can write it without that second set of parentheses, but that 2 plus I goes together as a root.
It's almost
It's almost 10:55, which means we got 10 more minutes to learn. We got 10 more minutes to learn. Caitlin, how many weeks have you, how many days have you been in my classroom? The answer is like 77 or so. Like, you know it ain't just riding out for 10 minutes. You must be outside your mind. I'm still teaching this.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's what he is, that's all he knows.
Alright. I'm glad y'all took such great notes because we're continuing. If I spare you, that means I don't care about your future in education and I care about both, so I'm not going to spare you. So, 5a. Notice we have the function h of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. And then it asks here, what is the most efficient method to determine the zeros? Okay? So, 0 is equal to x squared minus 2x plus 2. Now, there was no 0 there originally, so where did that come from? Okay, so h of x is what? 0. How do we know h of x is 0? Because it's looking for zeros. That's an important thing to note there, right? We're looking for zeros. Look at the way that this equation is currently set up. What do you think the most efficient method would be to solve this equation?
Solve it.
So maybe factoring? So the AC method? Okay, so I'm going to take 1 and I'm going to multiply by 2, which gives me 2. What factors of 2 add up to negative 2? Nothing. Also, I want to remind you this is the third function we graphed originally. Did any of those three graphs intersect the x-axis?
No.
No, because we have imaginary roots, right? So we could convert it to vertex form, but we've already done that today. Oh, if I have standard form equal to 0, I could use the quadratic formula. Now, when you say put in the calculator, what do you mean? But if you graph it, it has imaginary roots, so I can't just graph it to find the roots. But I can, when standard form equals 0, use the quadratic formula. So what is that quadratic formula?
Negative b.
Negative plus or minus.
Look how old we gonna do.
Hey, we gotta remember.
Yes, you gotta remember that. I've been telling you that since last Thursday.
Are you using B and A?
We've been learning this.
Say that again. Why are they using what?
Oh, no, I just said, all you're doing is using B, A, and C.
Oh, A, B, and C, right. So, remember, you gotta know that equation. I told you that since last Thursday, that you should know that equation. So, language. Pretty confident that showed up for the online video, but whatever. So what is A? B equals -2, C equals 2. So, X equals,
I'm running out of room. 2,
X
5,
equals 2 plus or minus
Killing me, bro.
square root
Xavier, stop having such low expectations for yourself.
Divide by 2 times 1.
Divide by 2 times 1. Alright, now, one thing I want to point out, because overall it is just substituting those values in. Why is this a 2 when originally B was -2?
Just that is the opposite.
We want to recognize that it's the opposite of B. You can take the time to write it as -2, but that will become a +2. It's your choice. Now, if you remember from the beginning, what did I always tell you I would simplify first? There we go. Simplify that radicand. Type -2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 in your calculator. Say again. -12?
Keep playing.
You need to be careful about that. Mackenzie, did you put parentheses around your -2 before you squared it?
Yes,
How y'all gonna tell her?
I did. I don't want to tell her what she can get.
Is it -4?
It's -4.
Look at the parentheses though. Are they there?
Yeah.
So what you probably did is you probably did -2 and the square root. Notice how you're now squaring inside of the parentheses. You can be outside the parentheses. Alright, so what's underneath this right here? -4. Pause, stop, and listen. We got 5 more minutes to cover some important ideas. Right here, part B says determine the discriminant of the function. This is a term that you probably, I'm about to go over it, it's a term from Algebra 1 that you probably don't remember, but it says it right here. The discriminant of the function is b squared minus 4ac. What is that? The radicand. That's it, right? So what they're talking about when they say the discriminant, they're talking about the radicand of the quadratic formula. What's underneath the radical. Because notice, this is how you determine if it's going to be real or imaginary. Are those zeros real or imaginary?
Hold up.
I mean, but why do we say they're imaginary? Not squaring a negative, taking the square root of a negative. The radicand, the discriminant, immediately tells you whether those roots are going to be real or imaginary. The fact that we're taking the square root of a negative tells us they're imaginary roots. If it was a positive, they would be real roots. If that was a positive, it'd be real roots. Okay? So I'm going to finish this up, this part C, but we need to do a quick poll question before we end class. It's to help you for tomorrow. Golly.
Mr. Kitty sick of
So all I did was I distributed my division by 2.
You push my button for no reason.
Why are you yelling?
Alright, you can substitute into the equation.
Oh, okay, that's what
Alright, you need to log in and answer these poll questions. I'm giving you a chance to tell me what you want to work on tomorrow.
Let's just chill tomorrow.
No, you got a test on Monday. I mean, I guess you can chill, but that's gonna hurt you on that
Hey,
test.
my mind ain't working this week.
Mine ain't working.
If it's not working,
Reset it. Oh my gosh. This man.
Bad internet connection.
I get all of yours.
Looks like I know you hear it. Hey,
Y'all, you've got to answer these poll questions before you leave class.
We just gotta choose one.
Huh? Nope.
Which y'all pick?
What's the hardest one?
Can you work out until you click something wrong?
I think quadratic formula.
Did that one, number one.
Simplifying radical. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
Simplifying
We got 22.
what's coming from?
What?
Oh my God.
This is to help you practice.
Say something.
Well, Xavier, if that's mindset you have.
I did. Cause you want to the gym, look at your girl.
Guys, there are two questions. You identified two different skills. One skill on the first question, one skill on the second question. So, if you have your graphic organizer to turn in, give it to me before we're working on it tomorrow and Friday, prepare for the test. Okay. So, if you have graphic organizer or practice assignments to turn in, I need those. There is no new homework, but we will work on the practice I gave you over the next couple of days to prepare for your test, which is why I am asking you to tell me what you want to. Y'all, I'm talking. Listen, this is the practice that you will have over the next 2 days. I am going to build the groups off of what you said you want to work on, so you will have new groups tomorrow.
Make it back down the stairs. I should probably let everybody know.
Hey, I'll be learning, man.
You got a big test on Monday. You got a test on this.
What I tell you? Chris, what you said I tell you? I just irritate you.
I drove past you at like 4. I had to leave here at 4. And you started there, and I was like, man, what is going on? David, can you hit the button on the back to stop from recording?
Yeah, I do.
She wasn't mad at me.